So 4 years ago, I made a video called Watch the Pros as part of my Archery Annoyances series. And I raised a few pretty critical points. The general idea of that video was that you shouldn't just tell someone to go and watch a professional archer and copy what they do. And the basis of that was that you don't really know how they got there or why they do the things they do, so just imitating them doesn't really give you a full idea of what the process is, so you come out with an incomplete process, which may be worse than what you had before. Things haven't changed that much. I think back then the archery environment online was quite different. It hadn't matured as much as it has today, with more resources and more people covering archery topics. Back then, everyone was like buying Samick Sages and telling people to watch World Archery TV, which was quite a big disconnect given how different the styles are, and that's why I made the video to begin with. This video is going to be something of a follow-up. It's going to follow the same idea of using professional archers as role models and inspirational sources and reference material, but also I'll be looking at this not from an advisory perspective, but more of my own experiences in looking up certain people, trying to learn their style and the pitfalls that went with it. Now, the gist of this notion is that because there are top performing archers who win championships and win gold medals, you may be tempted to just imitate what they do. And this might combine with your own development. You may receive some kind of coaching and you have a style that's forming, and you see like Brady Ellison or Kim Woo-jin shoot a certain way, and you want to incorporate that particular method into your style. And a lot of people will go down this pathway, myself included, where we learn a few things, we pick up new things, and we try to make them work together. And this can be fine. There isn't one perfect, correct way to do archery. Everyone's slightly different, and everyone has their own variations on particular styles, methods, and processes. So it's fairly normal to come across people who have a hybrid of different styles. That was definitely the case for me. Back when I was being coached, we sat down a lot and we talked through some of the top Korean archers, as we all do, the men and the women especially, just because the technique is so fine. There's so much finesse and good execution in their technique that it's natural that many people want to imitate the Korean archers. And back when I was training and learning my form and developing my form, I would actually spend a lot of time watching World Archery events, and I'll particularly watch the Korean archers. One, because they're successful. Two, there's so much you can learn and study from them. And there were certain techniques, even mannerisms, that I wanted to adopt in my own style. And as my technique has progressed over the years, I can pick up points where I try to introduce certain things. Things like having a half kind of like anchor stopping from my head and coming down, and other things. I mean, some things seem to work for me, some things not so much, some things I made work, and so on. I mean, it's wrong to say that it was a mistake to do this, because we all learn from mistakes. But I've learned that in doing this, in trying to incorporate different methods and styles into my own style, I've actually done a bit of a disservice in kind of not listening to my own advice and learning from the pros, but more so that I've tried to learn it by myself without any guidance. So here's the fundamental flaw, the mistake I think I made and many people are making right now without realizing it. In watching successful archers and top-level elite archers, you shouldn't just be drawn to people who are very successful and copy them. What you should instead be doing is learning from people who shoot like you. Now, this may seem like terrible advice because, well, if your way is not working and you're not shooting well, why not copy like Brady Ellison? Why not copy Kim Woo-jin or somebody else? And the reason is that if you have like 5 top-level archers lined up and you analyze their styles, there might be a lot of similarities, but there are also going to be some fundamental and diametrically opposed methods in their shooting styles. And if you don't understand what these differences are, you might not realize that certain approaches, mindsets, and processes aren't compatible with your style of shooting. For example, there are pretty big differences between shooters who focus on linear draw compared to angular draw or continuous motion. That is something which you need to recognize. If you understand that somebody is preferring to use a particular method of drawing or particular process, if that lines up with the process you use and you're comfortable with and they do it really well, you should be perhaps learning from them rather than someone who is very successful but shoots differently to you. Now, if you want to change your shooting style completely or adapt your style to be more similar to somebody else, that works. But if you are just saying, oh, this person is doing this or drawing like this, but you still use your base style, it might not match. And I've seen people, again, this is very common, people who pick up things from different sources and create this mash of different techniques with different processes gained from different places. And it kind of works, but it doesn't seem to work out overall because it's so tangled up. In fact, I'll use the example for myself. So when I started archery, I was coached by an Australian coach. He used to be a national level coaching director, and I was also inspired to read books by Rick McKinney and also Kisik Lee, and a lot of these things are actually quite different. So I'm kind of absorbing information from 3 different sources. And my own coach, he kind of adapts some parts of the KSL shot cycle, but also teaches classic push and pull process. And I'm already kind of working with 2 or 3 different styles and methods. And through the years, so again, some things worked well and some things kind of fell apart and I couldn't make things work together because the blocks don't quite fit. And more recently, I was trying to kind of fix my form and address some issues, and I picked up the Australian coaching manual and went, oh, this is interesting. I might try this stance. I might try this draw cycle, and that worked for a while. And when I kept on trying to bring back things I've learned before, I just couldn't make these things work together. And it was only when I went to the Kisik Lee coaching seminar last year that it finally clicked with me. That I had to wipe out, not forget everything, but I had to pretend I knew nothing and just learn a process from start to finish in its entirety. And that just made things click. I'm like, wow, I get it now. I get why this system works. I get why this particular approach works. And when I try it out myself, when I teach people, it works. I'm not saying this is the very, very best system which everybody has to do, exactly, but it makes sense to learn a system as taught by the person who made it and work from it from beginning to end. And I think people who often criticize other styles have an incomplete understanding of how that style works or how that process works. And I think that was one of the flaws I had in approaching archery the way I did, which is again a normal approach, but I didn't really have that awareness of what other people were doing and why it was different. I just thought these were the same thing but in different ways. The other thing which opened my eyes up during the seminar was that we did a lot of form analysis of competitive archers, and the focus was on competitors, especially Brady Yellison, because that's who Kisik Lee coaches. We had others like Jake Kaminsky, who is of course very active right now on YouTube, and basically any American athlete, because they are coached through the NTS or Kisik Lee's coaching method. So we did a lot of form analysis of these particular individuals, plus more, and it just actually makes sense to me. What I've been doing beforehand was spending a lot more time analysing Korean archers like Kim Woo-jin, Ki Bo-bae, Chang Hae-jin, because those were what I thought were the best archers and the best style. Turns out that first, their styles are actually different from each other, depending who their coaches are. But secondly, I didn't really analyse Brady Yellison because I didn't understand what he was doing. And now that I've learned KSL, I go, Oh, that's why he does that. Same with Jake Kaminsky, same with others. It's like I've been given the right lenses or the right glasses to watch these people and go, that's what they're doing. And now with guidance from the coach, and especially when you have people who can explain their process, like what Jake Kaminsky is doing on his channel right now, it makes sense when you watch them shoot. And that's really the message of this video. It's not just to copy professional archers or successful archers. You really have to build an understanding of their process. If someone can help guide you and explain what they are doing, if you can sit down and watch them, or you can sit down with a coach and talk to the coach, or if they can explain to you what they are doing, then it opens your eyes up and it allows you to learn properly. If you are just looking at a professional archer and copying the style without that background, without that training, like I said in my last video, you have an incomplete understanding and you end up making a lot of mistakes because you're trying to make different things work together which aren't really designed to work together. Looking back at the way I've progressed over the last few years, the way I've gone through my archery pathway and my journey, I now see how I became lost. Many reasons, I think things get in the way. But in terms of technique, form, style, process, I understand now where I could have gone through a much straighter path. And that was if I stuck with one thing, learnt that one way from people who teach that way, and be inspired by people who shot that way. If I picked the right role models, or if I had the right role models, if I had the right professionals to look up to, then that would have clarified the process to me. Because I didn't understand what very successful artists were doing, I kind of pushed it aside. And I defaulted to other successful artists because they kind of looked successful. So yeah, don't just copy. Understand what goes behind the process. Again, this is a different annoyance, but one of the problems with watching competitive matches is that they show all the results, but they often miss the processes. It's like you want to watch how they stand, how they draw, and all that, but because it's more TV orientated, all they show is, oh, they're at full draw and target over there, and they skip to the next person who's at full draw and they release and target cam. And you miss the processes, and all you see is like click and let go, and that's only like 25% of the shot process. So yeah, I mean, I think I will stand by what I said in my previous video. Just be very wary of who you copy from and try to understand the process behind it. But my addendum, again, looking back at my own learning now, is if you are going to try to learn from other people, other professional archers or people who teach, for example, on YouTube, then try to identify with someone who you think you can shoot similar to or shoot similar to you. If you want to adapt to somebody else's technique and learn from scratch, then that's a pretty big undertaking. It takes a lot of effort to unlearn or reprogram yourself. I don't think unlearn is a good phrase to use, because it's still there, you still know it, but you're reprogramming your brain to use your body and your tools and your process the way it should. So yeah, I think that's my overall message. I'm not really annoyed at myself, but now that I know, I'm like, I get it now. And hopefully this should clarify perhaps some confusion you have, especially if you're coming across people who teach different things. You might think, but that's wrong, my coach says it's wrong. But if it works for them and their coach says it works for them, then just understand that the approaches and the individuals will differ. So you can't just take a successful gold medalist and copy what they do. Anyway, sorry for the ramble. Wasn't really structured here, but just kind of clicked on me that I've been through so many kind of like bumps and troughs and meandering through my journey, that it's only when someone could shed light to what I was doing that I realized that I wasn't wrong, but I could see where I've taken different turns, which have gone me to a different direction to what I thought it would go down. Anyway, I hope that gave you some insight. I hope that was interesting to you. Thanks for watching, guys. This is NUSensei, and hopefully I'll see you next time.